Hey, good afternoon, my friends in Oklahoma. I'm very excited to be with you today. How are things out there? They're good out here in Virginia. I'm pleased to be with you via Zoom. I hope you and your families are doing well. These are very interesting times we live in, but you know what? Interesting means lots of opportunities to do new things. So, you want to be an astronaut. You want to be a doctor. You want to be a musician, a professional sports person. You want to be a chef. You want to be a teacher. You want to be the best person you can. Well, guess what? You can. And that's the neat point. That's why I'm very excited to be able to speak to you today, because everyone that ends up doing what they want to do, they have a story to tell. So I'm going to tell you my little story of how I became to be an astronaut and fly with NASA and help build the International Space Station. So it began out kind of where you are, out in West Texas, many, many years ago, where I lived out on those plains. And that meant at nighttime when I was outside, I could look up and see the stars and reflect on what they were and how far away they were and things of this nature. But at the same time, that's when the United States was just starting its space program. And it was so exciting because it was on the news, and I found it thrilling and full of adventure and something that a young boy or a young girl could participate in. It kind of combined everything that you can think of, a little bit of the unknown, a bit of, as I said, adventure and excitement and thrilling and technology and people all working together to get something accomplished. And it was done for our nation, the United States, yet we could understand the early astronauts as a person too, not just that they were, for example, astronauts or members of the US military. And so that's when I began my little desire. And it started out little, to become an astronaut. And guess what? It stayed little for a long time. Yeah, all the way through elementary school, through middle high school, through high school. I did all of the things that you probably are doing. I played sports. I went to school. I had a lot of friends. I had bicycles and like motor scooters and things of this nature. Always did things safely. But I had all of that, and I really didn't think much about becoming an astronaut until I was about to graduate college with my degree. And I thought, what did I really want to do? And, my heart went back to my dream. And I said, I really think I want to try and become an astronaut. Didn't know how to do it. So I went and talked to the only person that had anything to do with space at my university, Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. And lo and behold, I met that one person that influenced me and kind of said, well, this is how you need to do it. And he said, since he was the commandant of the Reserve Officer Training Corps for the Air Force at Texas Tech University, you need to become a pilot, son. And I said, well, I really like that idea. My father was an air traffic controller, and I've always been around airplanes. And he said, well, we need you in the Air Force. And I said, well, I really want to become an astronaut. And he said, well, you really need to become a pilot first. You need to learn how to be a good pilot before you can become a good astronaut. And I said, all right, I've got that. I can do this. And then he said, how bad do you really want to become an astronaut? And I said, because the space shuttle was just starting to be tested. And I said, well, I want to fly the space shuttle so bad that if they let me, meaning NASA, that I would clean the toilets on the space shuttle. I know, you're chuckling. But I was serious. I wanted it that bad. And the funny thing is, let's fast forward. When I ended up flying the space shuttle, guess what? One of my main responsibilities on the space shuttle was I had to make sure that the toilet worked, except we didn't call it the toilet. We called it the waste control system. And I did a very good job at that. But let's go back. So that's when I did that little click in my mind that said, I don't want to be an astronaut. I'm going to be an astronaut. So I dedicated myself after that to doing everything I could to make myself a good choice by NASA to become part of their astronaut corps. So I went and got an advanced degree from the University of Texas in aerospace engineering. I learned a foreign language. I studied overseas. I started picking up new skill sets. And then eventually I was picked up by the Air Force to become a pilot, and I entered pilot training many years ago, and I began that path, and that path was really important for a couple of reasons. So first of all, it gave me the skill of flying high performance aircraft, and that meant that I learned how to handle myself in difficult situations. And then I learned the mission, and that was something I had never really been part of before, which meant I was part of something bigger than just thinking about myself. So that's very important in spaceflight, because you have not just the astronauts in the rocket, of course, you have everybody on the ground. And so it is a team effort. So every time you see astronauts fly, just as we did a couple of weeks ago with Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, two of my friends from NASA, there were thousands of people on the ground that made that success possible. So I learned how to work within a team to achieve a mission, just like you, if you're on a dance team or you're on a sports team or whatever it is you do, you have to come and work together to make sure that you achieve your goal. So I flew for many years in the Air Force. I was so proud to represent the United States when I was overseas, and that led me to becoming a test pilot. And eventually I found myself testing new aircraft and all of their systems in Florida. And when I look back on that, I realized how important that was for me too, because it meant a new phase in my life where I had to be able to fly the airplane and understand what was happening and speak to the engineers on the ground and describe to them how the airplane flew in terms that they could then make the aircraft fly better. So I really learned how to become an evaluator, somebody that could understand how a system work. And when I mean a system, I don't mean just an airplane, but it could be anything. It could be how, for example, a car works, or an autonomous vehicle now, a drone, things of that nature. So I learned a lot about flight test, and that coupled with my desire to be an astronaut and willingness to learn other foreign languages. I know that's interesting. For example, Russian, set me up then for NASA to pick me to be an astronaut in 1996. And can you imagine, I got selected on my first time? Not even close. They said I wasn't ready for it. So I had to go back and apply again, become better skilled. But eventually I did get picked up, as I said, in 1996 by NASA. And I spent about 5 years training to be an astronaut. And then in 2002, I had the opportunity to fly the Space Shuttle Endeavor twice to the International Space Station, where we built it out and made it a beautiful place to operate and live. And guess what? It's still there. So I'm hoping one of you someday will decide that you want to live on the space station too, and go see where Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, the two astronauts that flew on the SpaceX rocket, are living now and learning how to do better things in space so that we can go to the moon and Mars. Okay, so that's my story, right? And I didn't stay at NASA for several reasons, and we'll have another video to explain that someday. But what did I find out when I was there? Or what did I find out during this journey to become an astronaut? Well, I got 3 P's for you. They are persistence, patience, and a little bit of planning. So anytime you have something that you really want to do, you can't just wish for it and hope for it. You have to say, hey, this is something that's important to me. And you have to think through it about how you want to achieve it. So you got to plan it out a little bit. But then come 2 inner qualities that you have to develop that will ensure that you are successful. And those are patience and persistence. So you have to have the patience to realize that you don't get everything you want right off, and that you have to be willing to persevere. All right, so that's the persistence part. So persistence and patience. And persistence means that you don't quit on the first time, you keep trying, especially if it's that important to you. As I said, I didn't get picked up to be an astronaut on my first attempt when I applied to NASA. And so I did the things that made sure that set me up to be selected the next time. So why was this a good thing for me? Well, look around at my adventure wall right through here. Having become an astronaut, and the journey to get to becoming an astronaut, being an Air Force pilot, and having gone to school and having my own family has introduced me to things that I can't show you all the pictures, but as I look around here, I've got pictures of me flying with a French astronaut in Canada, and there I am in Florida, and then here I am working and visiting a school in, I believe that one's in Colorado. And here is a poster from when we were in California. And here I am flying an aircraft overseas in Europe. And oh, I'm meeting over there some Texas Rangers. And then if I come to this side, oh, I get to meet a Medal of Honor recipient. And oh my goodness, I'm getting to meet my good friend Domingo, who owns a great restaurant in Colorado. Oh, hey, you should read about Domingo. I wrote a little note about my good friend. And see, let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, I have an original newspaper from when I was in college that talked about flying, and gee, just all kinds of great things. The point I'm trying to say is that I met so many good friends like you, and that's what makes life rich. And that, I think, is the reason why I love being here talking to you, hoping that you too will find your path to what you want to do. And hopefully it will involve the world of science and technology, which is going to be a big part of who you are in the future. Anyway, I wish you all the very best in whatever you're doing this summer. I think you're taking some classes and you're continuing to develop yourself. So be inquisitive, be curious, develop every skill. If somebody says, hey, help me take apart this lawnmower engine so that we can see how it operates, do it. If somebody says, hey, let's go, let's see, let's think of something else. Let's go build this. Or if somebody says, let's learn a new sport, do it. Play everything you can, learn everything you can, because it is all of the skill sets that you piece together as a person that's going to make you become, if that's your choice, the best astronaut in the world. And if it's not an astronaut, to becoming the best doctor or chef or professional sports player, football, basketball, golf, whatever it is, musician, all of that will help you be the better, I guess, person that you can be, and actually helps you be the best person you can to your friends around you. So take good care. My best wishes to you and good luck. This is Colonel Lockhart out.